Hello and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Teachers. I'm Tavis Beam.
And I'm Danny Hogger.
And in this episode, as part of our New Teacher Conference series put on by the CTA, we talked to Nicholas Ferroni.
Yeah, he is a nationally known activist and education reformer and keynote speaker. And we were his first interview of the day after he did his presentation, which we got to see and really enjoyed.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of great programs. He's been working with People Magazine. He's been working with Soul Pancake. He puts out a lot of fantastic content and is really just an all-around good dude.
And also, on top of that, he's doing experiential simulations in the classroom that are just really, really neat and innovative. And they can definitely help any teacher's strategies, especially in middle school and high school. There's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, and stay tuned for a bunch of other episodes coming out from the New Teacher Conference series. And go back and listen to or watch lots of our old episodes.
There's so much good stuff. So if you like, share, and subscribe. Plus, if you like the general vibe that we have, you should check out some of my stuff on ampeduplearning.com at the Hogger History Store. Because if you're just trying to stack some resources and get some new ideas for the classroom, that's a great place to do it. If you use promo code HoggerHistory10, it'll save you 10%. And if you're in California, check out the website ctagov.org for all the upcoming conferences.
All right, Nicholas Ferroni, take us away.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Check it out.
And welcome to a live edition of Inspiring Teachers from the new Educator Weekend 2020 in Santa Clara, California. I am Danny Hogger, as always.
I'm Tavis Beam.
We do that intro a lot.
We do.
And that was fairly smooth.
Yeah, it worked.
I mean, are we really complimenting ourselves on giving names? And the answer...
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It is absolutely yes. And we have a very special guest, the keynote speaker of this conference at which we are attending here at the Marriott in Santa Clara. Nicholas Ferroni is here, and I'm so excited to talk with you. Thank you for taking a few minutes.
Thank you for having me in your beautiful state while I leave New Jersey weather.
Hey.
Which is not nearly as nice.
Well, everything has its own advantages, I guess, and California is nice almost any time of the year, but this is a particularly nice time, and the cool breeze and the low humidity. It's a great place.
Seasonal depression doesn't happen here, does it?
Depends
I'm
on where you
happier
live.
the minute I'm here.
Yeah.
Depends on where you live.
Yeah, some places are foggy a lot.
I think I'd be a better teacher if I lived here.
So, Nicholas, you do a lot of education reform. You do a lot of keynote speakers, but you're also a high school teacher, and that means a lot to you and who you are and the foundation that you've had to go and speak. So I don't know a lot about how you came to be a teacher and what your journey was to becoming a social activist who's inspired so many people and has won awards like the Upstander of the Year from the HRC and so many other things. But how did you come into education? I know you've had some inspiring teachers in your life. Tell us just a brief bit about that, please.
If I said I always wanted to be a teacher, I'd be lying.
Sure.
I always loved history. I was always inspired by my educators, my coaches. I was very lucky to have mentors in my life who supported me. Again, I came from a very supportive household, but you need that affirmation from people who are not your blood. All right.
It's true.
And I will be honest, Indiana Jones I thought was the coolest guy in the world.
Me too.
I'm like, that's what I'm going to do.
I majored in anthropology.
Oh my God, absolutely. Go on adventures on the weekend, teach during the week.
Sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, and then I ironically ended up having a passion for history after college, after Rutgers, but I ended up falling into acting. So I ended up booking a job on a TV show, a soap opera, and it was only a matter of time before I was waiting for a job to open up my old school. And then I decided to leave an easy job of acting a few days a week, making decent money to become an actor full-time and teach 6 shows a day to an audience that does not want to be there.
Yeah,
Right.
Yep. My background's in radio broadcasting, so I definitely understand that. You've got your script, your audience, and your message. What are you going to do with
And
it?
I was a professional circus clown. So
So we're a bunch of entertainers up here.
All good teachers are entertainers.
Yeah.
It is entertainment.
They
Or at least
should
it's
be.
passion, delivering something you're passionate about.
That's right.
Yeah.
So as a high school teacher, you're a big proponent of social experiments in the classroom, which I think is a phenomenal way to address a room and to gain knowledge out of the book and in an experience. Tell us, who inspired that for you? How did that start?
When I was in college, one of my classes, it was a cultural studies class. My professor showed me Jane Elliott's brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment.
Oh yes, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
If you're not familiar with it, it's the experiment that this teacher in Iowa taught her elementary school kids about racism and prejudice based on their eye color. She taught a predominantly white student body. And it basically establishes the fact that racism is taught and prejudices are taught. And when I saw that experiment, it was so powerful.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, Oprah did it.
Yeah,
right?
Oprah did a
That's
thing
what I saw.
with her audience.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most powerful things. Rarely do we think we could teach empathy.
Yeah.
I think you can.
Yeah.
I mean, people say you could teach apathy, but I think you could teach empathy. And then once I saw that experiment, I said, when I become a teacher, I'm going to try to find every possible way I can to not only make kids learn history, but make them understand it or give them a better knowledge of it by putting them in certain situations to allow them to actually get in that position. Now, with that being said, we often see on social media and news social experiments gone wrong.
Right.
Because people try to teach something like, again, trying to teach a slave trade or something like that, which is so insensitive. Social experiments could be the most powerful tool, but they could be the most destructive if they're not well thought out.
Yeah, I see that.
I mean, there are experiments that I've written up where I said I would love to try these, and my first thought is, will this emotionally disturb my student? Will this cause some PTSD?
Right.
If the answer is yes, or if there's a chance it could be yes, I would never do it. So I always think it's a very thin line to do. At the same time, it's such a great way to use a simulation or an activity to get them to better understand or give them a slight understanding of what it may have been like.
Yeah, absolutely. I ran and I know you have something, so I'm going to get right past this quickly, but we're doing World War II, and I had them read high school yearbooks from that time, just have them draw comparisons between their life and back then and their life now, and it absolutely made them think about what an individual in the United States was thinking. Then I showed them yearbooks in Germany from that time, translated, and they were like, wait a minute, you mean they had the same wants, dreams, and wishes and goals? And I'm like, there's the moment right there, right?
Yeah.
And it was a low risk, but it was an interesting connection.
Yeah, and you did the other one where you went on Google, right? And Google Earth, and you were looking at
Each city. I looked at our city where I'm teaching, and I looked in the city of Tehran when we were talking about Iran and Iranian relations a few weeks ago. And they were like, their roads look like our roads. I'm like, yeah, and guess what? Their schools look like your schools.
Right.
So,
And those kids are just like you.
yeah. We all want the same things and the same validation, and we are all fearful at times.
Absolutely.
How could we bridge that communication gap?
How often do you do these social experiments? Because I imagine the kids are onto you.
You would think they are, but
that's a cool thing.
kids forget what they did in class the day before.
That is
so every
that's
time.
true, too.
Yeah, every time they're like, "You'll never get us," I get them again because I set it up in a certain way. Like for
Right.
example, this year I
Cool.
did the one for Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
I convinced my kids. I showed them a fake page on our student handbook, which none of them have ever read, so they didn't know
course.
if it's there.
Beautiful.
That if we could get 10% of the class population to file a policy, that the school will change the policy. So I had to make a list of things, and they were rational, like more vocational classes, more time for lunch, certain dress code changes. And then I had them sign the list, and I said, I'll hand deliver it to our principal. I then had our principal come down and rip them apart, threatening them, taking away prom and everything else. The premise to see, will they keep their name on something knowing there's some sacrifice? Because
Right.
without sacrifice, there's no change.
And that speaks to John Hancock putting his name so
It's
boldly
treason.
in the center.
They're
It's
giving
treason.
their lives.
Yeah.
That's right.
Will you give up prom or graduation?
Yeah.
You know,
what are you
which,
willing?
but again, for a senior, that's everything.
Right.
Everything.
And there
Yeah.
were students who I was going to say, and I told students who took their name off. It doesn't mean you're a coward. It just means you're like, all right, well, I want to go to prom. You know, it's
Yeah.
like there were people who's like, I'm not against war. I don't want to die. You know, it's
Yeah.
like so
Yeah,
it
sure.
teaches you the different dynamics.
And there's also people that are just following orders and instructions, trying to keep their head low. And I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yep.
some of the students do that too as well, right?
Yeah, just follow the rules. It's not bothering me. It may not hurt me. It may not help me, but keep the status quo.
It's great that your principal is willing to play along too and be a part of that.
Oh, it's great. He gets to say everything he really wants to say, but say it's acting.
Failed.
Yeah.
Failed.
Yeah.
Nicholas, is there a place, first opportunity to plug it, where these ideas are? Have you combined these resources somewhere? Is there a website where people can learn your notes?
If they go on YouTube, I work with Soul Pancake, which is a production company, the kid president. Amazing. I mean, I'm so honored. I'm actually doing a few more social experiments with them. You could type in Soul Pancake Congress and see the one we did on gender inequality. Soul Pancake Declaration of Independence. Soul Pancake, we did one on ageism. We did one on, similar to what I did to the teachers today, on dress code, when I gave students this new dress code, teaching them about Native American assimilation,
Right.
watching them flip out when these new policies are going to be put in place. So we've done a ton of stuff in reference to social experiments with Soul Pancake.
That's awesome. We'll
wonderful.
put some links in the description for that as well, because people
Yeah.
should definitely watch that. That is amazing.
One thing that I really stuck out for me was where you talked about turning a bad behavior into a good thing. I really like that, and then you're already laying story.
So you know who Artie Lang is.
I know who
Good,
Artie
good,
Lang
good.
is.
We do.
Yeah, absolutely. Just how he had that history teacher who saw his love of goofing off and then used that as a way to have him riff on history. That is really powerful. And I was just like, do you have any more stories from that vein where you could talk to our listeners about?
Absolutely. Outside of the one I gave a reference to a student who was doodling the entire period. So I had a student who would just sketch, not pay attention to notes. Nice young lady, did not say much, but I noticed she drew all the time and just doodled all the time. So I kept her after class and I said, you're a very good artist. Here's what you're going to do. Instead of writing notes or copying down definitions, you're going to draw definitions, which would obviously require more time because the format she's familiar with. she felt comfortable. It didn't seem like work.
Right.
So I then had her submit a design to a sock company for a contest to combat gun violence. I had her do that. They ended up picking her sock, and again, as a sophomore, she had a sock design which helped combat nationally gun violence.
Yeah.
And it's like taking something like that, which again, some people say lack of focus.
Yeah.
I had a student who liked to write raps. She spent every class rapping. So same thing. Here are the history notes. Write a rap, make a beat. Before every class, she literally would do her rap, make her beat. She had to have certain criteria, 15 historical facts. She started getting A's in my classroom because I was doing something that she enjoyed and it was making her better. She had her first song on Hot 97, which is a big station, R&B station in New York. So it's again like little things like that where it's like there's no such thing as, I mean, there's bad behavior. Some of the best behaviors would be considered bad behavior under a certain environment or certain structure.
And it's just about directing it and using it to your advantage and her advantage.
Absolutely.
Everyone's gaining.
Right.
I don't end a class or start a class without a piece of good news from around the world to combat the negativity we can get from seeing things that are constantly shelled at us. So, yesterday there was a story from England of two sisters who changed Kellogg's policy on where they acquire palm oil from. And I'm like, if you don't think you can affect the world in a positive way, these girls are 8 and 12. And we can all do this. And I had a kid stay after. It's like, I had no ever really thought about that I could really do something. And I want to thank you. I'm like, that's all I can do as a teacher is have that feeling happen.
You spoke about the Yo Mama jokes of history, but I haven't heard one yet. So, all
right, one that really got a kid upset. So just to give a background, I try to take things my students love on TV and social media and try to apply it to history class so they understand the format. The only thing that changes is the material. So there was a popular show on MTV called Yo Mama where they told Yo Mama jokes. So I'm like, this is an easy history activity. They had to use 5 historical facts. And obviously, I stressed the fact they weren't directing it to anyone's mother in particular. So the 2 jokes, which
important setup, a big deal.
So when I say your mom, it's not literally your mom. The 2 jokes which stood out because the class reacted, and the class likes to hype everything up. So no matter what happens, like that sort of thing. So the one joke which we're doing like a Renaissance art was like, your mom was so big, Michelangelo needed 2 pieces of marble to carve her. Nice. And then the kid's comeback was, well, your mom was so hairy. Benjamin Franklin shaved her back and sold the hats as beaver fur. Wow. And the kids flipped out, but they used the criteria.
Specific,
yeah. And at the same time, looking back, probably not the best activity. But at that time, I'm like, let me try creative ways to engage them.
Yeah.
So would I do the activity now? Probably not. Yeah. We will do a historical TikTok where they have to do a historical TikTok scenario, but it's just constantly adapting activities and creative ways to not only allow them to understand the material, but to show their creativity.
And it keeps you up on what's happening socially, because like you were talking about Zach, you mentioned Zach Morris, and they're like, who?
I know. And, well, it's my whole mental. If I'm not entertained teaching, they're not entertained learning. Like if I feel like
definitely,
it's not,
and they can feel it when you're engaged and when you're not too. What I started doing just the last 2 units in high school history, which can probably be done at any grade level, is finishing a unit, and then I've created a ton of different assignments in just 3 or 4 years, but I never thought of it till now, is throwing out all of them, all 6. Pick 2.
Yeah.
Which 2 appeal to you? Do you want to do art? Do you want to draw? Do you want to make a podcast? Do you want to do a TV broadcast?
Yeah.
Do you want to write a journal entry? Do you want to do something visual? Do you want to do something that is the plain, ordinary worksheet that has a question and an answer? If that's what you want, then that's what you get. And all of them are choosing the format to express their learning. And I think that's a cool thing, is choice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, students show their genius in many different ways. I would say if we evaluated Picasso and Hendrix based on a standardized test, we would have never known they were geniuses.
Nice.
And it's all about that taking risks.
Yeah.
Everybody knows one of my favorite quotes is failure is always an option, from Adam Savage. And I really like you said that you're a successful teacher because you fail.
Absolutely.
I love that. That really spoke to kind of the heart of what I get at with this podcast.
Yeah. Nicholas Ferroni here on Inspiring Teachers. What are you hoping that people will walk out of the room with, having gained from your presentation?
Besides not hating me, because I do a little experiment on them in the beginning.
Right.
But just a constant reminder, especially being a first-year teacher. And I think we all go in there with confidence that we know the material we can teach. We want to be the John Keatings, those sort of teachers. And then we don't realize that none of that really matters in the end. It's about connections, relationships, that content is pointless. I also want to remind people that it is good teachers make teaching look easy, but it's one of the toughest jobs outside of military service or anything else. Besides, the fact of what goes into it. And every good teacher contemplates leaving teaching, or whether they'll be able to sustain as a teacher, because you're so emotionally invested in it.
Right.
And the one thing I hope they leave with is just remembering that they're gonna there's going to be a child who's going to grow up to be an adult who's going to remember how they felt when they were in that teacher's classroom. There's going to be a student who's succeeding in a field because one of their first or second grade teachers or high school teachers said, "I believe in you."
Right.
And I think those are the moments which matter the most.
Yeah. One thing I always like to think about is what I remember from middle school. And I don't remember the content. You spoke about that. I don't remember what they taught me, but I remember if the teacher was interested and interesting.
Yeah.
So if they were interested in what they were talking about and interesting as a person, I remember them as a person. I don't remember what I learned.
No, you can't fake passion.
No.
It's like anything else. You can't be in a situation where you could easily tell when somebody doesn't care about what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah, passion's definitely not. It's impossible to fake.
Yeah. At the same time, when I first became a teacher, I was like, I'm going to do this because of my love of science and wanting to proselytize science, and then I had a hard first 3 years until I realized, no, it's about the student. And like you said, the content, while I'm passionate about it and I'm 100% invested in it, I ultimately know that's not why I'm here.
I will always say the smartest people don't make the best teachers.
Yeah.
I do not know the most about history, but I put myself around a lot of history teachers.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing.
And as a woodshop teacher, I'm no expert, but I teach them about how to fail
And
because I fail constantly.
You also teach them how to learn and how to find things
Right.
and use resources, which is what I always say is like, let's learn together. If they ask a question I don't know, I'm excited because I'm like, here, I have a sheet for that. Go look that up and find it. Here's a point to add to your grade so you feel rewarded, but we're all rewarded by gaining more knowledge. And I'll use that 6 more times when I teach this the rest of the day, So that's huge. And I just have one more question for you, which is when you're giving us a lot. You're giving us a lot in this podcast, in this speech, and in the many
I'm not giving anything that we all don't know in practice.
Well, I've gained a few things that I want to
I'm not a guru by any means. I'm a work in
That's what all
progress.
good gurus say.
and that's what our show's about. Is
my mom
everybody-
says I'm a guru. That's it.
That's what our show's about. Is everybody sharing these things that make us all better, and that's what we're hoping this podcast is. It's a great archive of good thought, positive thinking, and tools.
Yeah.
What gets you into the creative spurt process? Because I go through it where I'll have a week where I make 10 things, and then 2 or 3 days where I'm kind of rhythmically stalled. What do you look at that makes you excited, happy, and makes you want to do creative things? What do you read? What do you see? What do you listen to?
I would say when I have conversations, like those subtle conversations with students about what they're passionate about or what they're talking about or what they're doing, and then trying to go home and try to find ways to implement it or try to teach them the lesson I want them to learn, but in a format that they understand. And I feel like those conversations, and again, like everyone criticizes like youth nowadays, like they're this or that, they don't know what they're talking about. Yet I wasn't protesting or I wasn't concerned about civics when I was in high school.
Correct.
Yeah, I wasn't staging protests for lives or march against violence. Right. I was worried about prom. Like these kids have the negative is they have so much access to information. Now we have to teach them to think for themselves, which is, I think, the most difficult quality to teach right now because they're so overflooded. So I feel like my interaction with students always inspires me to kind of think outside the box and also makes me reevaluate my methodologies as an educator.
Yeah, just being engaged with them and really listening to them, and then you just let your brain kind of process.
Yeah.
I find that I'm always thinking about, it's like this background hum of always thinking about my advanced students and their projects that they want to do in the shop and how are we going to execute it, and just have that moment in the shower where I was like, that's how I'm going to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, again, a necessary field like that, trades are such an important thing. And the benefit is I do have students in a lot of trades, and when I go to a store, or whether it's, and they find out Mr. Ferroni, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I trust this kid right now.
Right.
And he's going to give me a discount. No, I'm kidding.
And I think a great thing to leave on and to reflect on too is that what are you imparting to them? What's your gift to them? And I think you've given our audience a real gift today for being here. And I love when I can practice the things that I'm talking about, and when I'm asking them to grow or expand their mind, telling them stories about when I'm doing it, or surprising them with when I shortfall and when I act like a child myself, and remind them I'm also 12, or 13.
I'm not perfect.
I'm not, and I'm learning. And I think that's great to show them that adults are that way too, and inspire them to rise up. So, Nicholas Ferroni, is there anything that else besides Soul Pancake, the Declaration of Independence, the other things that you've done? Where should people find more things that can help them, and what else do you want to promote?
If they want to follow me on social media,
Yes, please.
Twitter and Instagram, it's at Nicholas Ferroni, Nicholas Ferroni. I'm doing a cool campaign with People Magazine, and the premise is we're asking celebrities to share their favorite teachers, and we're going to create a little montage video, and People Magazine is going to do a nice little feature spread on those teachers.
It's a great thing.
So my goal is just to celebrate teachers and remind people why they became teachers, and let people know that behind every successful person and celebrity is probably a teacher who believed in them at some point.
There you go. And there's
Wonderful.
the perfect aligning to what we're doing here. Thank you so much for taking extra time today to talk to us and our audience at Inspiring Teachers.
Thank you so much for being here on a weekend.
Oh, man,
absolutely.
This
It's
is fun
valuable.
for us because
Yeah.
we end up fired up and bringing more lessons back to our rooms on Monday.
Right.
So until the next edition, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and follow us at Show Teachers on Twitter. And we'll see you on the next edition. For now, class is dismissed.